Welcome back. Carlos and Chantel here for our coffee connection time. Ching, ching.
Ching, ching.
Hot. She likes it really hot because she likes to sip on it. Okay. Yeah.
Coffee should be hot, shouldn't it?
Oh, iced coffee's nice too.
Oh, yeah.
With our
Not lukewarm.
with our little oil in it. What is it?
MCT oil.
MCT oil. That's right. It's good.
Good morning, everybody.
All right.
I'm not gonna spill today.
So this morning I was just talking a little bit while I was waiting for you.
Yeah.
About Passover and how there is a Shabbat at the beginning of Passover and at the end of it. The beginning of it, and it's marked by the full moon. It was really interesting. I woke up at like 3 a.m., y'all, and I heard our goose, and
she is hurt, by the way.
She is hurt?
But
oh, something bitterfoot? Like looks like
I don't know. Oh. I didn't catch her because I had to come in here.
Right.
But she's definitely limping.
Wow. So we think I heard something attack our goose, like, which our boys chased it off, whatever it was, and prevented it. Our boys, when I say boys, our dogs. Someone's watching Brandon's like, what's your boys? Why are your boys outside at 3 a.m? Yeah, we have herd protecting and ranch protection dogs. Captain, dun, 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 and Chacho. Captain is about what, 50, 60 pounds. He's a barker and a chaser.
He sounds the alarm.
And Chacho is the enforcer. He's 140 pounds. Woof, woof. He's big. Biggest dog I've ever had, actually. 140 pounds is heavy. And I'm sure he's pushing 150. He's pretty much fully matured now, but he's a big boy.
He's definitely matured.
He's a big boy. He's Great Pyrenees and King Shepherd mix. Beautiful dog. Both of them are beautiful. They're awesome. They're my sidekicks. It's so crazy. Anywhere I go on the property, they are always with me the whole time. They will just I will work out on the pond and with the tractor, and they'll just be laying in the shade right by me while I'm working. Them's my boys. So point being is last night at like 3 a.m., I woke up, I heard some strange noise of the goose, and then I heard the dogs whoa, whoa, and then chase something. And so it was really interesting. Apparently something snuck in by our ranch. Or by our house, excuse me. I actually think it's a fox. Foxes are sneaky, and we've been seeing them, and they're fast, lightning fast. So I think the boys have been chasing these foxes around here for a while. They just keep them at bay. But Itana got grabbed a hold of somehow on her foot, it sounds like. But I'm glad the boys were around to protect her. So yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Now back to Passover. Sorry. When I got up at 3 a.m., I actually went out looking for her and seeing what happened because I knew something had happened. I couldn't find her. I was like, man, did she get drug off or what happened to her? But she came back this morning, which is good. But at that time when I got up at 3, I was like, man, it is bright out here.
That's
and
not
it was
the first time either.
The full moon. Not the first time what?
She's been drug off. Go back.
Oh, really?
You don't remember the last time? Anyways.
But yeah. At
the
full moon, which marks, that's how it's all determined, by the way, is the Jewish calendar, and doing the Passover is based on the moon. And so it was a full moon last night, and it woke me up. That's what I mean. I just woke up like at 3 and I was awake. Then I heard the goose thing, and I got up and went downstairs and got the flashlight and trying to figure out what had happened. So the full moon started the Passover. They call it there's some names for it, but so at sundown yesterday, it's always based on sundown to sundown, started the first day of Passover and an additional Shabbat.
Actually, tonight starts the full moon.
Oh, tonight starts full moon.
7:49.
Interesting. It was
for 3 days.
so it's there we go.
Tonight's the start.
The start.
Today's the start, not last night.
But last night at sundown was the Passover. Or was the Shabbat? I believe. Anyways. Go do your research if you're really interested. The one thing that English people or Americans will describe it as 2 days of rest, but it's not. It's actually from sundown to sundown, which includes kind of 2 days. That's why they call it 2 days. But just to define that for you at the time when you're reading about it.
So they call it the pink moon, sprouting grass moon, the egg moon, fish moon, or the Pesach or Passover moon.
And that's tonight, is what you said. Okay, so what I'm guessing then is that I know there's a Shabbat on each end, and it's again to prepare. So then maybe that's bringing in the Passover to prepare, you rest and reflect. That's what I love too, is the reflection time to bring in the Passover. And what's interesting about the whole Passover thing is the going back to being set free from my phone starts blowing up.
Yes, and Passover did start last night at sundown.
Okay.
Correct.
And so then what is it all for? Like, what was Passover originally for? We had a little discussion as a family this morning for our connection time about it. Because even if I think about what my connection to the Father is for, what's it all for? What is this connection like? What is the worship all about? To worship God and connect with the Father. And knowing the Passover was when the death angel passed over the homes that were marked on the doorposts and the top of the door and on the each side of the post, right, with blood from the sacrificial lamb. And so you got all that. That's all part of the history of Passover. And why would we still celebrate it today? Because again, rest and reflection and connection with the Father. And that's what I love about it. And then at the end of it is like another rest day to reflect again on debriefing this time of Passover. And even recognizing the love of the Father. What was interesting is I realized like the Father's always doing reaping and sowing. So all those times, like if you know the story of Moses, right? And how all the children that were Jewish, their firstborns were thrown into the water and killed, essentially. Moses was the only one that survived. And if you don't know that story, go check it out. But he survived, so then he was raised as a prince, an Egyptian prince, even though he was Jewish, and they let him keep his Jewish heritage. He still did the feast, still did the celebrations with all the Jews. Matter of fact, his mom, biological mom, even raised him as a handmaiden for the princess, because he became a prince, or excuse me, yeah. Is that right? Yeah. So anyways, point being is he was raised as an equal in the Egyptian kingdom. And if you know the story, he then helped to set the people free. There was 10 plagues. And the final thing was the Passover, the death angel passing over, which it's interesting. You reap what you sow. They had sown killing all these Jewish children, the firstborns, right? And now that's what the final thing was, is the death angel. If you didn't mark your doorpost, your firstborn would die. So that's what happened. Interesting thing too, when you bring it to practical, Moses was actually really good friends, grew up with his brother, who is now king, right? And so that's why Moses had favor too. You often wonder, how does Moses just waltz in there and talk to the king? Like that didn't happen back in those days. Well, because it was his brother. He grew up with this guy. That's pretty fascinating. And they loved each other. So again, but there was this separation because he was Jewish, he was Egyptian. And in the end, when the Egyptian king lost his son, he was so distraught. And yes, take your people and go and take our wealth, I don't know if you knew this part, even like hey, take all supplies you need, take all the cattle you need, all the sheep you need, and also any wealth, gold, silver, gold, and take it, jewelry, take it. Like he wanted to bless him in that moment. He was so like distraught. He's like, this is the final straw, take it and go. And it is funny how that happens a lot in life with people. They make a decision, then a few days later he came to his senses and like, wait, what did I just do? And then he like pursues the Egyptians, or excuse me, the Egyptians then pursue him, and the king and all of his army pursue Moses to kill the Jews and bring them back as slaves. So interesting how that is. But the bottom line was Passover marks the death of so many firstborn Egyptian children. And then in that time too, then there was the leavened bread part, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just as a reminder. So even to this day, it's the same kind of thing.
Yeah, it's interesting. So, for our retreats, we'll rent big homes, and we've done it in Kissimmee, Florida, Orlando area for a number of years. And we have had a couple, that lead into the time of Passover down there. And because, the command is to clear your house, full of
Preparation.
of anything yeast, anything leavened. And so a lot of times what the Orthodox Jews will do is they'll just leave their homes. They'll go rent a big home down in Kissimmee for the entire week and do Passover there, because then it's clear. They don't have to clear their homes, so to speak. And it's fascinating because we'll literally, be down there, and they'll have their garage doors open, and you'll see a number of men fully, dressed and cloaked and doing their prayers. And, it's pretty fascinating. But there's a large population, especially like from New York, where all the high population of Orthodox go. They'll go down and rent homes down there. Fun fact.
Yeah, they pretty much kind of take over Kissimmee in a sense. And those houses are, I think to be honest with you, I think a lot of those houses are actually owned by a lot of Jewish people from New York. Like it's their second home, but they Airbnb it during the off seasons of the feasts. Really interesting, right? I mean, we're talking a lot of them come in during that time. Like probably, I don't even know. I would be speculating, but thousands and thousands and thousands of Jews come into Florida during that time. They've like made that their thing.
The whole ritual of eating unleavened bread has to do with, that they didn't have time to let the bread rise.
Yeah.
So that the ritual of, the memory and the honoring that is why the unleavened bread.
Which is interesting, because when we do Shabbat, we do have leavened bread. Mm-hmm. And how long does it have to sit to rise?
Oh, babe, every recipe is different. Mine's an hour.
An hour. So there you go. But what I'm saying is that's kind of interesting, because I like to make it practical and be like, dang, an hour. So they really had to go. But that's what it was like, right? Like everyone was ready to go. And when Moses gave the word, okay, let's go. And the king sent the decree to let the people go and give them all your riches, essentially all they can take with them. Then they grabbed everything and ran. Right? It's like, oh my gosh, we got to go. So it is kind of interesting how then that marks even the unleavened bread and remembering that. Yeah. And it is a really interesting time. We've celebrated this different years. Super grateful for David Pavlik and Nori Pavlik and our relationship with them, and them really, really getting us introduced and familiar with all this stuff. And what Passover is about, the three major feasts: Passover, Sukkot, and then Shavuot. So the three major feasts where during what they called three major feasts, when they would go back to Israel, the Jews would, and to the temple, and that's where the gathering would take place. That's what Jesus did. That's why they were traveling. Mary was traveling, and Joseph, if you didn't know that, that's the whole story of taking the donkey, right? Going there. But anyways, a bunch of stuff all connected when we hear these stories, but we don't know how does it all work and how is it all connected. And so now looking back and reflecting, why would we still do Passover then? Why would we still do the major feasts? What I've recognized is that connection to the Father and have that greater connection, have that greater understanding. Pause, right? Cease from what you normally do, rest and reflect during this time. And I love Sukkot too that way. It's a week long of that, resting and reflecting. So it's a major like type Sabbath, and staying in a tent so that you can be grateful for what the new things you have too as well. And being out in nature is a little bit more fun. A lot of people do glamping instead of just camping. We enjoyed the tent aspect of it. We've talked about doing that on our property. Like, we have a lot of land here, just designating some portion of it to create a spot for Sukkot and have bonfires and camping and for a week and just hang out. I love it and enjoy our beautiful paradise here. So with that said,
I like this.
what you got?
Some reflections on Passover include, and that's, the Seder plate, there's different herbs, bitter herbs and in
Oh yeah.
things that you do. So, some reflections, this list is kind of cool.
Which Seder is like a Passover dinner, right?
Right.
Yeah.
What we've learned from bitter experiences, what new connections we've made, what innovations have inspired us, what we've sacrificed, reflecting on if we've been an upstander or a bystander, what we've participated in to support inclusivity, how our sense of order has been this year, like our priorities, how our priorities have been set.
Good.
What we're striving towards, like, what are our goals and dreams, what new observations and experiences have changed us, if we feel valued, how we've expressed gratitude, how we honor the natural world, the changing season, and the emerging spring.
It's good.
And what role we've taken to help repair the world. That's a really cool list.
Reflection list during Passover. That's cool. Should probably
that.
post that. Be a good one to post, huh? Okay. So when I woke up this morning at 3 a.m. and dealt with the goose thing, I couldn't find her, and then went and laid back down for a little bit. I was contemplating even this whole Passover thing, because I was aware of, like, what am I doing waking up? And then I was aware of the moon. Tonight, I guess, is the actual full moon. It was a partial full last night, but it was bright. And I was just like reflecting on, like, what's it all for though? How do we get closer to Papa? But why? The why thing is, what do we believe about what getting closer to the Father would do? And I think a lot of people are about, well, it brings peace, love, joy, the fruits, right? And there's so much, connection to the Father. I just love him. Right? And I get that. And I agree. That's super good. However, we serve such a very powerful, purposeful God. And even his word says we love him because he first loved us, right? That's kind of our, like, where he loves us so much. And when we finally allow that love to come in and consume us, then we love him back. Like, we understand it, and then we're like, whoa, I love him. He loves me. Oh my goodness. And it kind of creates this cool, right, if you would, like, love relationship that's really awesome. But if that's where it ended, you can have all the faith or connection to the Father, all you want. But if you don't, do all this stuff and you have worship time, prayer time, read the Bible a million times, spend hours and hours in the word. But if you don't have love for his people, is it even real? Because that's what I recognize is, like, how that love with the Father should inspire and, like, rise up in you then to want to love people. And I recognize that, how that creates a hunger to love others. My hunger to love Papa then creates a hunger to love others, and starting with my spouse, starting with myself, what that looks like to love myself, and then my spouse, and then my children, and then my family and friends that are like family, right? My people I work with, within the world too. Like, I think, often we see people wanting to do all these things that are good and spiritual, and they're good. But what's it all for? I think that's what's the point of it if we do all these things yet we don't have love. And what does that mean to love? And so this morning I challenged my family, challenged our little group here, Hazel, Chantel, myself, and I said, hey, you know, I want you to ask Papa. And if you've never done this as part of your Epic 30 in the morning, I want to enlighten you and challenge you to do it. Be specific. And I said, I want all three of us to ask Father for a random Bible verse that will speak to us about what's this all for? What does Passover represent? What are we doing this for? Like, what is this about? And it was really cool. The three different answers that came this morning. Um, Hazel's was about renewing,
A new birth.
a new birth, a renewing. That's what coming into the Passover could represent for her. And she could relate to it. She connected to it. She's like, yeah, she, we all need to be renewed at different times, right? The Bible
Well, and I
talks
think
about
that's
that.
what
So,
spring represents too. Like
oh,
if
that's
you look
true.
at the season and
Good
look
point.
at, even
Birth, rebirth,
Yeah.
renew.
Mhm.
So it was really fascinating to hear that. I didn't expect that. I mean, I didn't know I just opened. But when she came down and shared that, and she was like, you could feel that it really was cool for her. And it spoke to her. Like, that to me blessed me more than anything. But a new birth, a renewing, and that it's like a fresh start, right? Like Chantel said about spring. So that was cool. And then what about you? Or you want me to share first?
I can share.
Okay.
So mine was, I don't have it in front of me, but I think it was in Matthew, uh, about forgiveness.
Mm,
Forgiving the trespasses of others, right? As we want our trespasses forgiven.
so good.
And so I think when we look at the law of reaping and sowing, and even representation of Passover, and how you explained, what was sown, right, was now reaped.
Coming back. Yeah.
And so, I think that's one of my favorite part about Passover, is just kind of like, reflecting on, like, how have I loved well? And that was the question that I was asking, in my letter, was how can I love better, right?
Amen.
And recognizing that there probably are some places in my heart that needs more forgiveness. Um, there's a couple in particular that I can identify right away. And so it was a good reminder, bringing stuff to the forefront, right, of, entering into a new season with forgiveness.
I love how you share that, and triggers the triumph too, that's the bridge
Yeah.
to a better story. Forgiveness allows us to love more, really.
Yeah, I mean, because we all have wounds and we all have hurts, and, forgiveness. And I think one of the biggest things that prevents us from actually forgiving, especially when we've been hurt deeply by somebody, right, is that it lets them off the hook, right? The perception that if we have forgiven them, then they're off the hook. They're not brought to justice. There's not consequences for the actions and whatnot, and even if it's unconsciously that we think that, like, obviously consciously, I'm fully aware that, I'm not responsible. I'm not God. Like, I am not the judge and jury, or, I'm not responsible for, consequences for other people's actions and whatnot. Consciously, we know that, right?
Yeah.
So I think, recognizing sometimes why we haven't truly forgiven would be the unconscious feeling of, or belief, that then they're not responsible for their actions, right? In that sense. And again, it's deep levels, and sometimes we don't even have a clear awareness of the places that we're not forgiving, right?
Agree. It's a good word. It's a good word. Something to really take to heart and pause and really reflect on. I agree. It's good. Appreciate that. And I know too that I feel very, when I think about even the Passover and what it represents too, of even the death of those as a reaping from what they had sown, but yet also it's a reflection time of slavery and what took place. And now, even right now, as we think of what's taking place, even to this day,
Yeah.
the in Israel and the people who are dying and the war and
Hostages and all of those.
fighting.
Yeah, it's interesting because you said something like, you mentioned a solemn time. You know what I mean? Like, and it's interesting how you kind of like your knee-jerk reaction is like, well, I don't want to see it as a solemn time. But is it bad to enter into a solemn time
Right.
of reflection? Is it, because I think that's all part of the grieving process.
Yes.
Right? So, and it's necessary. There's things that we don't allow ourselves to grieve, whether it's relationships or experiences, or when we move into a new season, letting go of the old season, right? Even though we know it's exciting and new and we're ready for it. Are we allowing ourselves to grieve and mourn what once was, even if it's toxic and even if it's not beneficial? It was a part of us. It was a part of our lives. And you know what I mean? So there's, when we discount that, we're not fully embracing the process, so but it is, I think it's a good time to press in and to access, on a sensitive level, slavery on generational levels, not just the Jews. We have slavery. Slavery exists all over the world and looks like many different things, right? And so as a connection to humanity, is it okay to enter in and to feel that
Right.
deeply, and to feel the empathy and the connection to our fellow man, generations past and generations to come? And what do we do? What are we doing to help? What are we doing to learn, to grow, to love better, to love well, right?
Absolutely. And I think that brings us full circle even back to Epic Your Life and creating extraordinary for us, and creating the sanctuary in people's homes and helping them to do it and how to do it and discover that process in the core, being in marriage, that connection that starts first with me and my wife, me and my bride, right? And that example, how important that is. I love that we have that. God allows in his wisdom what he could easily prevent with this by his power. And thanks to Layla and King Kaufman, they got that for me. Right there, hangs on our wall. And they got that for us, and it is super powerful. It is a super powerful quote. Just recognizing that, but yet forgiveness is a huge part of that. Even those situations we go through that creates the bitterness. And it is, that's all part of the Passover, right? Eating the bitter herbs and subjecting yourself to the bitterness. And you're like, why would I do that? You know, if you choose to design hard in your life, life will be easy. But if you choose to make your life easy, then it will actually be hard. You know, if you choose the easy, right? Designing easy. So it is interesting, you know, ice baths that we do. we work out all those things like putting pain on my body. But yet it creates a healthy place and space. All right. What you feeling?
I think I'm just feeling the bitterness of some of the pain that we've been through
Yeah.
rising up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. It's good. You know, I think human nature causes us to suppress or protect ourselves, right, from those feelings
Yeah.
until we're ready. So sometimes we don't know when we're ready.
Yeah. And it's a grieving of the planet right now, because literally Jews are represented all over the nations, all over the world. And they do. That's the one thing that I appreciate too about the religion, if you want to call it that, or culture, just that it's ingrained in their people and in the people, the Jewish culture, Jewish people, and what we've adopted too is just reflection during this time. And everyone is doing that right now. That is committed in that way as a Jew, or even like, because we're messianic, you know, believe in Yeshua as the Messiah, but yet practice a lot of the things of Sabbath and rest and the feasts, 3 major feasts. So reflection's a big part of it, and knowing and feeling that it's powerful. Thank you for sharing, love.
And we talked about last night, like a woman's cycle, you know, is a superpower. So I feel like there's just an extra, for me personally, or an extra layer of sensitivity and feeling depths, and you know, especially with the moon. And so I just want to encourage, you know, especially the women out there who represent the moon, on the depths of that feeling, to embrace it, press in, and not to suppress or deny it, right? Like, because it is the fullness of who we are.
Yes. Amen. Yeah, in Judaism, they also believe that the moon is representation of the woman, the sun being representation of a man. And so very powerful too about that. When I think about all the connections, that's super powerful. Like the moon is very responsible for gravity on our planet and causing the tides and the waves, and has such a lot of good things, like the affects even the crops. There's so many cool things. Marker of spring, marker of harvest, you know what I mean? So it's really amazing. New life, new birth. And so yeah, that's a powerful thing, that the woman represents so much of that through the moon. That's good. Cool. So then when I asked Papa, I was like, again, my question at 3 a.m. was even that, like, what's this all for? Why do we pursue this, Papa? And what good is it if we're just like, I don't know, we have all this connection, this spiritual enlightenment with the Father, and yet we don't love his people. Like, that's what I recognize. It's like so many people are all about the spiritualism of the connection to the Father. And it's good. It's definitely good. And I believe, though, there's such a practical side, that Jesus was so practical. And when I was asking the Father that, and then I asked for a word, Psalms 57:10 came up, which is so interesting because I know this verse for a very long time, and it's been connected in my history to a song. For great is your love, reaching to the heavens. Your faithfulness reaches to the skies. You guys know that song? Your love reaches to the heavens. Your faithfulness reaches to the skies. Remember that song? So it's an old song. I can't remember who sings it, but probably have the tune off a little bit too, because it's been a while since I've heard that song. But I definitely know its lyrics to a song. And what I recognize is that impression that I always got when I was singing that song and reading this verse, Psalms 57:10, is that it was like talking about God and his love. And so I was like, okay, again, I love breaking this stuff down, right? And as I opened it up, pulled out of course, Bible Hub to really break it down, Psalms 57:10 is really cool. I'm just gonna pull it up here. Sorry. Again. Because I believe I enjoy deep dives. First of all, the parallel to Hebrew is for reaches unto the heavens, your mercy unto the clouds, your truth. And your truth and your mercy. So what's interesting though, for reaches unto, it's reaches means it's great, it's huge, it's big, right? Unto though, means to adorn, and then the heavens, the sky. Okay. And your mercy unto, again, the clouds. So the unto, though, was the part that really, when I was reading through and scrolling through, one of the things that's mentioned that caught my eye was like, oh my goodness, to become. Now, why is that important? Because to become is something that advances and continues. Well, we know that the Father is already there. So if it's talking about God, it wouldn't have to become, it wouldn't have to advance. He's already there. He is love. He is so, and then that love that is said love, when you dig deep into it, it actually means loving kindness, though. So to become and to continue to advance in kindness towards mankind. So it's like, what's this all for? So that we can learn how to love mankind well and be kind to mankind. That's what it's all for. So we can spend all this time with Papa and gain all this wisdom and love. For what? Yeah. For what? For what? And you have no friends. For what? And you don't even know how to talk to someone. Don't even know how to honor them. You just shove the Bible down their throat. And they're like, I don't want to talk to any Christians. Y'all are just, to them, that's hypocrisy. You don't even know me and you're trying to shove your Bible down my throat. I'm not saying everyone does that. I'm just saying to recognize, what's it all for? If we don't even know how to love, we don't even know how to connect. And it really just like, because it's like how important the message we have is a practical message. It's simple. What does it mean to love your neighbor as yourself? What does it mean to love? What does that mean? We're called to love, and then, we're getting all spiritual and like, well, what about the practical side? Like, what about, how does that look? And I really see it even in here, the 3 C's of connection. It's to connect to people, it's to love them. And it takes confidence, because here's the next part. To be kind, to mankind, do you know what that means? To kneel. To kneel. When's the last time you had a group of people and you knelt before them? And how about washing their feet? What kind of confidence does it take to do that? 3 C's of connection. I don't know I've ever met anybody that was not confident that did that. They have a ton of confidence. And if you're the one getting your feet washed by them and you're like kind of embarrassed because your feet are dirty or they're stinky and you didn't know he was going to do this, and oh, my feet have been sweating in my shoes, but man, the confidence of Yeshua, the Messiah, who knelt down and washed those dirty feet, that they wear sandals. It's one thing to have socks and shoes on, right? It's another thing to have sandals that are out in the dirt and the mud and calloused, and I got some gnarly looking toes, toenails, and funky, a little bit funky, right? Everyone's got something. Mine are really funky. And I'm over it a long time ago. But, to kneel and show favor, to wash their feet, that's what that love is. That's what kindness is. That's a physical manifestation of kindness, is to be willing to kneel and wash the feet. That's like, so like, you rigid with your spiritual stuff and doing all the things you think you need to do to connect with the Father, but you can't kneel before man and wash their feet and love them and connect with them. You got to have the confidence to do that. I get it. So how do you get the confidence to do it? You got to start building it through repetition, which is the next part, which is the faithfulness. Actually, you're committed to support. You choose to support and be committed to people. Are you committed to people? Or is your commitment all to God? Now that may trouble you. It's all to God, and it's what it's supposed to be. But through that, the proof of your commitment to the Father is actually your commitment to his people, to mankind. That was all right there in Psalms 57:10. The fruit of your commitment and love to the Father is your love and commitment to mankind. You can, and his creation, by the way, it's all in Genesis. He gave us this creation to take care of. What are you doing to take care of it? What are you doing to love people well? And yet you don't want to make a phone call and talk to someone. You don't want to, ask questions. It takes too long to form someone and find out their sign. You don't want to help someone, get their dreams, fulfill their dreams. Like, what is love then? I know from everything that I've the greatest thing that truly shows love is commitment. It really is. My love is proven to her by my commitment to her dreams, commitment to her goals, commitment to all the things she's desires and wants. Same with my daughter, same with my mom and dad, same with my relatives, same with my team, same with my friends, same with my family. But if you don't even know what those are, how can you be committed to that? Do you know the people around you? And do you have the confidence to kneel and wash their feet? It's real. Like, what's it all for? So this Passover, when you're, these next 7 days, it goes till next Monday, Tuesday, I think. Next Monday night at, we're aware of Passover, but that's the whole Sabbath. We are working a little bit today. We're not doing our normal rest. We're not doing our normal day, but we are committed to working with some clients, and we're going to fulfill those commitments. Again, what's it all for? If you're not loving and blessing and being committed to people, I just read that. So again, part of that is, but next week, we are going to choose to take a Sabbath, an extra Sabbath, on above and beyond Friday night, sundown to Saturday, sundown. And so like on Monday, sundown, we're going to reflect. We'll be with the Kaufmans in Florida, Tampa. I'm excited for that. That's part of the timing of why we chose their really into it. They're Messianic as well, and we are as well, and we love it that we can come together and celebrate Passover this week together with them. We'll be headed out there tomorrow and tomorrow evening, and we'll be there for a week with them. But to be able to do then the Sabbath or the Shabbat next Monday at sundown to Tuesday at sundown is going to be awesome, and just reflect and debrief the week of Passover together. So that's what I love. It's pregame today and debrief at the end, both being Shabbats and Sabbaths, ceasing from what you normally do. So that's the word I got from Papa. So between renewing, forgiveness, and then love, but what true love looks like is an action, right? It's kneeling, willing to kneel. That takes confidence, and then true love is commitment too as well. All wrapped up in Psalms 57:10. So what is your word? Are you willing to ask Papa and say, hey, give me a word for Passover time, and see what happens? Share it with us. We'll be posting this video and posting some things about Passover in the group. Share with us. We'd love to hear your comments and things about this, and what your take is and experience is. Or if have you ever celebrated? Have you ever looked into it? What does that look like for you? Right? Anything else, stuff?
Nope.
A little longer version today, but good stuff. Love you guys. We'll see you for our Coffee Connect. We'll be at the Kaufman, so we'll do a Coffee Connect on Thursday with the Kaufmans. That'll be fun. All right.
Have a great day.
Love you guys.
Bye.
Thanks for being here.